Nowadays, everybody's got to go to shrinks and counselors and go on Sally, Jesse, Raphael and talk about their problems. Whatever happened to Gary Cooper, the strong, silent type? Remember the first time I came here, I said, the kind of man I admire is Gary Cooper, the strong, silent type.
Trying mighty hard to look like Gary Cooper.
From the very beginning of The Sopranos, right out of the gate, in the pilot episode, in his very first session with Dr. Melfi, Tony Soprano asked a simple question: whatever happened to Gary Cooper? Tony correctly identified Cooper as one who was known for being the strong and silent type. Indeed, Tony was correct. Gary Cooper was a famous actor whose career lasted more than 30 years, and he was a damn good earner. He got 5 Academy Award nominations for Best Actor, winning the honor twice, first in Sergeant York and then again later in High Noon. Tony's words about Gary Cooper not only imply that he looked up to the strong and silent archetype as an ideal to aspire toward, but there is reason to believe that Tony fancied himself as a modern-day Gary Cooper, the last of a dying breed. This is strongly suggested with Tony's initial reluctance to open up to Melfi. The men he looked up to in the old movies he loved would never have seen a shrink, even aside from his fellow mobsters' obvious concerns. Taking High Noon as an example, Cooper played Will Kane, a former marshal looking to start a new life with his new bride. But when an outlaw he put away, Frank Miller, comes back seeking revenge, Kane is ultimately driven by an unwavering sense of duty and honor, where he takes on the outlaw gang alone in an effort to stand up and fight for what was right. And his strong and silent, old-school, badass demeanor was on full display throughout, where he was a man of few words, a man better defined by his actions. In other words, Cooper's character is nothing like that of Tony Soprano. Tony might fancy himself the strong and silent type in the mold of the great Gary Cooper, but I assure you, ladies and gentlemen, Tony Soprano is no Gary Cooper. He is instead a man of endless bitching and moaning, griping and whining about almost everything from his children to his crew to the very food he eats.
He wasn't in touch with his feelings. He just did what he had to do. See, what they didn't know was once they got Gary Cooper in touch with his feelings, that they wouldn't be able to shut him up. And then it's dysfunction this and dysfunction that and dysfunction motherfucking.
The problem with Tony's take here is that he was already at that point. Nobody could shut him up. He was always bitching and moaning about anything and everything, where any inconvenience, no matter how trivial, can set him off into a fired-up frenzy. Indeed, many of the most dramatic moments in the show hinged on Tony becoming enraged over the most trivial things. There is an argument to be made that he only killed Ralphie because Ralphie had the temerity to point out that Tony eats beef and sausage by the carload. Therefore, he should not be particularly concerned about one of his crew killing a horse for insurance money. It was only when that fact is thrown in his face that Tony actually attacks Ralphie. Before then, there seems a possibility that the situation could de-escalate. Incredibly, food is often lurking behind these fits of rage. This is a man who flipped out over orange juice with too much pulp in it, nor was that the only instance. Something as simple as being a little hungry could send Tony into fits. Does anyone think Gary Cooper would become so enraged if someone ate his leftover lo mein?
I've been dreaming of that fucking lo mein all the way to fuck over here. Now who came in here and ate my shit?
Tony Soprano is no Gary Cooper. The strong and silent type archetype does not permit getting that upset over leftover Chinese food. If you thought he was angry over stolen leftovers, he was even more irate when they screwed up his delivery order in yet another instance where food resulted in conflict.
Motherfucking goddamn orange peel beef.
You have to go through the order while they're still here.
What good does that do? You still gotta go get it and come back again.
What happened?
They left out part of the order.
Call him up.
Just sit down and eat.
Indeed, Tony didn't have the best of luck with Chinese food on the whole, and he was hardly the strong and silent type when he couldn't satisfy his mighty appetite. Tony could also be rattled whenever he was sexually frustrated, and this was yet another area where he almost never did the right thing or remained either strong or silent. He viciously whipped the councilman for seeing his ex after telling him he had no problem with it. He couldn't handle dating Ralphie's ex and the thought of being where Ralph had been. He went after Adriana, his own nephew's fiancée. In fact, the only thing that might be worse is when he was being sexually frustrated and hungry. Then it would provide a perfect storm situation where Tony would even lash out at his poor wife, Carmela.
Hi, how'd it go?
What does it take to get some fucking smoked turkey in this house, huh?
What?
I bust my ass all day long and I come home and want a little smoked turkey. Is that too fucking much to ask?
Tony had a moment of guilt about cheating on Carm when he was about to have a celebratory shag with the Jamba Juice realtor. But his guilt got the best of him because Carm was by his side as he was recovering from his gunshot wound. So in one of the few instances where Tony actually did the right thing, acting in a responsible and dignified manner, where he was honorable and dutiful, he then proceeded to flip out on his poor wife as if she had somehow wronged him.
What the fuck is your problem?
Everything but fucking turkey in here.
These may sound like minor quibbles about food and sex with no real impact on the outcome of major events, but Tony's big mouth often got him in trouble, and is further proof that he was no Gary Cooper. Many of Tony's problems were a direct result of his own inability to control himself, whether or not food or sex was involved. The early war with Uncle Junior was all started because Tony couldn't keep his mouth shut about learning that Uncle June gives world-class head. Tony made a few wise-ass remarks. Uncle June didn't care for it, which led to a war where Tony's own mother tried to have him whacked. Oof, maron.
Cunnilingus and psychiatry brought us to this.
Gary Cooper was referenced many times throughout the show. And there are many connections to Gary Cooper that aren't always immediately obvious. For example, at one point, Tony references Robert Mitchum to his sister Janice. In the 1944 film Nevada, Robert Mitchum played the same character that Gary Cooper played in the 1927 film by the same name. Cooper brought a sense of strength and determination to the role, whereas Mitchum's version was more cynical and morally ambiguous, perhaps drawing a connection to Tony himself. Then after Tony's mother died, Tony can be seen watching snippets of the James Cagney movie The Public Enemy. Interestingly enough, Cagney won the Academy Award for Best Actor in a different role, beating out none other than Gary Cooper for his role in Pride of the Yankees, where he portrayed the legendary Lou Gehrig.
Lou Gehrig's disease.
You ever think what a coincidence it is that Lou Gehrig died of Lou Gehrig's disease?
You gonna make that same stupid joke every time that comes up?
Sorry.
And then, of course, not only does Tony make several references to Gary Cooper scattered throughout The Sopranos, but he specifically references High Noon, and in particular the character of Frank Miller, the outlaw seeking revenge against Cooper's Marshal Will Kane. This coincides with Tony's subconscious belief that his cousin, Tony B, is about to cause trouble with the Leotardos. And interestingly enough, in this dream when we see High Noon playing, Annette Bening is Finn's mother in that dream. What's her connection to Gary Cooper? Well, Annette Bening was in Mars Attacks with Jack Nicholson. Jack Nicholson was in A Few Good Men with Kevin Bacon. Kevin Bacon was in The Big Picture with Eddie Albert. And Eddie Albert was in You're in the Navy Now with, you guessed it, the one and only Gary Cooper.
You know, Quasimodo predicted all this.
Tony Soprano was no Gary Cooper, and this all circles back to the very first mention of Gary Cooper, when the anxiety-stricken mobster doth protest too much.
He wasn't in touch with his feelings. He just did what he had to do. See, what they didn't know was once they got Gary Cooper in touch with his feelings, that they wouldn't be able to shut him up. And then it's dysfunction this, and dysfunction that, and dysfunction mafungo.
This is at the very heart of it all. Despite his self-proclaimed reluctance to open up to a shrink, Dr. Melfi didn't exactly have to twist Tony's arm to get him going. He'd bitch and moan and complain about anything and everything. At times, he would praise Melfi for a job well done and for all the help and insight she provided him. And at other times, he would loudly complain that his sessions are a complete waste of time that hadn't helped him at all. He'd whine about Carmela, tiptoe around all the stresses of his job. He'd complain about his mother. He'd complain about his wife. He'd complain about his gumad. He'd complain about his crew. He'd complain about his childhood. He'd complain about his dreams. He'd complain about his maid. He'd complain about food. He'd complain about everything. Tony was never the strong and silent type. He loved talking out his problems and acted like each and every one of them was the worst thing to ever happen to anyone. After Tony was outed for seeing a shrink, Dr. Melfi had to go on the lam and hide out. Her life was in danger, and her and Tony would have a hiatus. During that time, Tony was so desperate to find a willing ear to listen to his bitching that he attempted to subject poor unwitting Hesh into taking Melfi's place.
The fuck is wrong with me?
You got some kind of complex.
What kind?
You know, sleep always helps.
Oh, you want to go to sleep? Go ahead.
Hey,
Jesus Christ.
easy does it, Ladybug.
When Tony and Melfi finally parted ways near the end of the show, Tony started opening up to AJ's psychologist. Tony was never the strong and silent type.
My mother was a borderline personality. So what? I don't know if you knew that.
No.
The differences are about more than words as well. Tony was frequently the opposite of what he said he was, as a sort of psychological defense mechanism to prevent thinking too closely on his many crimes. Tony admired Gary Cooper, but himself rarely ever did the right, honorable, or dutiful thing, and frequently when he did, he ended up changing direction. After not sleeping with Adriana, he declared he should have. He talked a great game about family and duty, but rarely ever actually paid up when someone needed help, used money as a weapon, and found a way to rationalize all his transgressions. Indeed, the evidence of this was clear for all to see the first time Tony started bitching and moaning about whatever happened to the great Gary Cooper. The irony was completely missed on Tony. Instead of embracing the strong and silent demeanor he celebrated, he was the personification of that which he criticized. What was really happening here is that Tony was complaining about himself. He was complaining about his own shortcomings. Tony wished he could be the strong and silent Gary Cooper type. The type of man who could do what he had to do without complaining. The type of man Tony knew he never was and could never become. In conclusion, Tony Soprano was no Gary Cooper. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed, and have a wonderful night.
And someday the cattlemen will put up a statue of me out there in the street. And they'll write on it, Judge Roy Bean. He give us back the land.
This time you're gonna get what's coming to you, Judge.
It's up to me. I drag Vito behind my fucking car right now.
Oh, will you take it easy over there, fucking Judge Roy Bean?
Don't try to be a hero. You don't have to be a hero, not for me.
I'm not trying to be a hero. If you think I like this, you're crazy.
AIDS?
Nobody's got AIDS. I don't want to hear that word in here again.
You can't stand anybody taking your place there, can you? Especially me.
You're
Look at your face. If you got some kind of sexual proclivity with that teacher or whatever, now's the time to tell us. I mean, what went on up there? Poppers and weird sex.
What? No.
Today, I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth.
Motherfucking goddamn orange peel beef.
When Michael Corleone shoots those guys in the restaurant, those assholes who tried to kill his dad, You sit there with your fucking bowl of ice cream and you say it's your favorite scene of all time.
Public Enemy. It's a great movie.
Dinner's ready.
It's a movie. You gotta grow up. Whatever happened to Gary Cooper? The strong, silent type. Remember the first time I came here? I said, the kind of man I admire is Gary Cooper, the strong, silent type.
Whatever the fuck happened to Gary Cooper? That's what I'd like to know. He died.
He wasn't in touch with his feelings. He just did what he had to do. See what they didn't know was once they got Gary Cooper in touch with his feelings, that they wouldn't be able to shut him up. And then it's dysfunction this, and dysfunction that, and dysfunction motherfucker.
Gary Cooper. Now, there was an American. The strong, silent type. He did what he had to do. He faced down the Miller gang when none of those other assholes in town would lift a finger to help him.
I had a semester and a half of college, so I understand Freud. I understand therapy as a concept.
The point is, Gary Cooper, the real Gary Cooper.
I say it's too long to wait. I won't do it.
Amy.
I mean it. If you won't go with me now, I'll be on that train when it leaves here.
I've got to stay.
This is Special Agent Dale Cooper.
Gary Cooper?
He'd be a member of some victims group. The fundamentalist Christians, the abused cowboys, the gays, whatever the fuck.
He was gay, Gary Cooper?
No! Are you listening to me?
Time's a lady.
You and that Benny.
And
I thought so.
You can't handle the truth. Trying mighty hard to look like Gary Cooper.
You know, Quasimodo predicted all this.